Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to WattKeys, where today we have another episode of What's in a Performance, the series where I review and react to different videos and different performances. And of course, today we have the one and only Animenz Unravel. If you didn't know, or you've been living under a rock, I guess, Animenz Unravel is probably the most popular and famous anime piano cover there is on YouTube. And of course, because of his wide popularity, there's been tons and tons of performances, covers, you name it, videos out there of people just playing Animenz Unravel. And so today, I thought we'd take a look at what Animenz is actually doing, since I guess y'all really like that last video a lot. I guess the link is up there somewhere. Real quick, if you like this sort of content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to let me know, so I'll keep making these sorts of videos. And of course, stick around to the end, because I have a little bit of an announcement that I want to make. So without further ado, here's Animenz Unravel. Let's get it. All right, it's time. It's time for Animenz Unravel. All right, let's go. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Animenz has already played it better than 70% of other people who play this arrangement. Let's go listen to it again. You see how delicately he's playing each note? You see how much care and attention there is to the melody. It's phrased properly. It's not rushed. He's not pushing the tempo. Instead, it feels like he's carrying the melody very soothingly, very softly. It's funny because this contrasts with like so many other recordings that you hear, and of course it makes sense, right? A lot of times when people sit down and to play a very difficult and complex piece, they think only about the hard parts. Everyone's thinking about, oh, I just need to get through this like beginning early section that's like pretty easy in comparison to everything else, and then I gotta think about the machine gun parts that are coming up next. But that results in rushed playing, a sense of hurrying through a section, instead of musically shaping and crafting it with the love and attention that it needs. And Animenz takes his time in the opening section, and that already, by and far, sets him apart from most other recordings of this out there. Yeah, it's actually quite difficult, right? Because most of your time and attention in practice is not going towards this section, technically at least. And so the tendency is for you as the performer to only think about the hard sections without enjoying the slow ones. You hear a little bit of the phrasing in the left hand. Do-do-dum, ba-da-dum. Left pedal right there. So how he does this, right? With this da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, like, I've only ever read this piece, so forgive me for not playing it in tempo. Essentially, it's a combination of two things. So I think one of the examples that Abby Whiteside, a teacher in the like 1930s or whatever, who was probably the forerunner of Taubman and like this whole holistic approach of thinking of playing with the whole body and like even including the mind. She uses an example. The compass needle points in a certain direction, but it can point in several ways if you think of your whole body. You can point it from the shoulder, or you can point it from the forearm, or you can point it from the wrist. You don't necessarily have to think all the time about how the whole entire compass is moving, but it's helpful, I think, to break it down sometimes into its constituent parts to figure out how exactly to get this rapid motion. And so two things come into play here. First, it looks like a loose wrist motion like this, right? So I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but it's a wrist motion that's like this, like that we use to play octaves. Like that. But if you see in the video as well, you can see Animenz's arm tense slightly, so he's getting a faster movement by coming up and down with the arm and with the wrist in this like octave sort of motion. And that's how he's getting like such strong articulation on like that, on top of playing really, really quickly, which is kind of interesting. And you can see that with the lower one, like, yeah, there's a, you can see. think Animenz describes this next section as the wall, because people give up after this because they can't learn it. And it looks and sounds really, really difficult because you got the big jump, but you have to jump then back down, and it's almost like a blind jump. And so this entire section is played purely with muscle memory. Recently, I came up with a video on how to practice jumps, and so the way that I would approach this, and I imagine Animenz approached this, is by jumping really quickly, landing, and finding the spot before pressing the note, right? So that you drill into your arm this sort of jump distance. But again, I would stress that what's more impressive about Animenz's performance than just him hitting the notes is the fact that he's got phrasing in there too. Obviously, the phrasing is not as intricate as before because it's a lot more rapid, there's a lot larger movements, but you can see kind of, you can hear ba-dum, ba-dum, right? And that stands up on top, ba-dum, ba-dum. And you hear ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-bum, ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-ba-bum, ba-dum. And so these things stand out even though he's doing the really technical jumps. Of course, jumping helps a little bit because he can land a little bit heavier, and that's what he's doing, but it's impressive nonetheless because it's not exactly becoming hard. It's like borderline, like a little bit harsh, like accented unappealingly, but otherwise it's like very, very good. Very few recordings sound like this. But we're only like 30 seconds in, and it's been 10 minutes. Again, he's taking the time, right? He's phrasing. Again, like I talked about this with the My Dearest video. If you haven't seen that, you should click somewhere to see how Animenz phrases this. But there's the ba-da-ba-dum, ba-ba-da-dum. That's on top, right? But then the dum-ba-dum, right? The layer below, and then below that you have the held whole notes to support that. So Animenz, again, is phrasing in 3 layers. This takes time. You can't just play this running through thinking about the next section. You have to give time and attention as you're performing to these things, which is what Animenz is doing, which a lot of other people don't do. See, he even has a bit of phrasing, right? Da-da-dum, ba-dum. Ooh, I love this. Oh, this is so good. Okay, look at his left hand. Okay, look at his left hand real quick. Look how high his index finger is coming. Right? It almost reminds me of like Beethoven's third concerto, the rondo. With the left hand and the pattern it is going for, and also how almost staccato-ish it feels like he's playing, right? You can hear the articulation because he's playing very dry, right? He's pedaling very, very little, if at that, but you hear da-da-dum, and there's like percussive, right? Da-da-da, but then the left hand is also like that because his fingers are coming up very high to give that articulation. And again, this contrasts with this section, this verse right here, because there's a textural difference. And now he's coming in heavy. I don't think I need to say much about how difficult that section is. The big jumps in the left hand. The right hand is comparatively easy because it's just playing the chords. Oops. Right, it's comparatively easy. Again, I want to draw attention to the fact that how much brain power is being allocated towards playing the left hand because it's technical, and how much brain power is going towards the right hand, which is more melodic in nature. We can't see his eyes, but I would assume that he's looking at the left hand because he has the right hand by memory, like muscle memory pat. But he's still giving enough attention to the right hand that it's not just... Right, it's not just ba 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 ba. He's phrasing it da 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 bum. Right, it's almost like you're hearing the original song by TK, like you made it da 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 bum. End of sentence. Ba da 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 da. Right, there's a shape and curvature to it that's missing if you only focus on the left hand and doing all the jumps. Again, if you want to learn how to practice jumps, I would again refer you to the video that I made, linked down below. That will help a lot with stuff like this. But also, again, Last video I talked a lot about weight. You can hear a lot of that weight going into the keys, but it's controlled to create that phrasing. And in the left hand, as he lands on the bottom note, yeah, it's a jump, right? He has to jump to get to the bottom, but he's using that momentum and speed to come a little bit from above, right? You can't see his full arm, so I can't see what he's doing like out here, but I would assume that he's coming in like this, using some of the momentum to land a little bit heavier so that he doesn't necessarily have to like drive in with weight because he has to keep going, immediately going afterwards, but he's using that momentum to come down heavy, and it doesn't sound incredibly harsh because everything is in a fortissimo, so it doesn't stand out even when he does overstep a little. And it doesn't sound like he oversteps at all, in my opinion. But let's go back a little bit. Like this section too. You can hear certain notes in the left hand being emphasized and being brought out. Again, thinking of voicing in layers, he's got the right hand carrying the melody, but then in the left hand, he's also got the and the arpeggios. The third layer below is all the notes in between. In the left hand, these notes in between are softer than the notes on the beat because he's bringing those out to articulate where the beat is. And so it's all another element of percussiveness that he's added to this piece. Notice immediate drop in dynamic. And you hear the notes in the left, boom, boom, boom. So if you notice, right, the way that he's getting these notes up top to stand out is a little bit of wrist rotation. So as he's, right, the rotation over like this, that creates that bit of an accent. The pinky is a weaker finger, so it's interesting how people get those accents and those voicings to stand out. And a lot of it comes from a wrist rotation like this, almost like Taubman-esque. Not necessarily saying that I espouse Taubman, but it's like this sort of rotation here that's initiated from the top of the forearm right here a little bit, and a lot coming from the wrist in order to give that little bit of articulation, especially since his hand is so stretched out to play like this. You also see in the left hand, right, this, he's not holding this half note, but he's coming up rather instead like the down up of a slur. Again, notice the building in dynamics. And this is, of course, ridiculously hard. So having not played this before, I'm not exactly sure how much endurance or how I would be feeling after I got to this point. But suffice it to say, I think I've listened to enough Unravel covers and heard people drop tempo here to understand that most people are very understandably tired at this point. Animenz, I think he drops very slightly at the tremolos. What is fascinating? Yes, one, how fast he's playing. It's super important to, again, note the technical aspect because this piece is incredibly technical, and how cleanly he's playing and how comfortably he's playing. It's not comfortable to play per se. You can tell that here he's digging deep, but he's not rushing, one, because that's a tendency when you dig, but he's also not dragging, and instead he's playing exactly on the beat. Everything is just clicked right in to the right spot, and the flow, right, the ebb and flow is helped by the way that he's phrasing the left hand. It's like, right, he's doing that again, and he's landing on the bottom note to create that emphasis to mark the beginning of the measure. What he's doing, right, is that he's phrasing each measure to those whole notes, right? The whole notes are what's carrying like the chord all the way. This is like the primary idea. If we were talking in like almost like analysis terms, it's like the deep chord behind everything else that's going on. It's the driving chord. And so of course when he gets there, he jumps, right? From the right hand, he has to jump. Again, like what I said before, he's jumping and using that momentum to land heavier on the chord. And because everything is fortissimo already, it doesn't come out as harsh. And in the left hand, he's driving in super hard with weight. You can kind of see that if we go back a little. So he drive in a little and it comes back, bounces back up, right? Uses that to spring off the fingers to land, to play the next note. And then in the arpeggio, it looks like it's mostly finger. But still, even as you go up, increasing in dynamic and like decreasing in dynamic, the ebb and flow of the crescendo, decrescendo, I'm gonna make some conjectures here because it's a little bit hard to see. He's starting off with mostly finger, but as he gets higher up, he's driving in with more arm weight. When you're going that fast and you need to play that loud, your fingers aren't going to be able to lift high enough to strike the key with enough force to create that sort of forte or fortissimo that you're looking for. You have to use the pedal to create that sort of space, and you need to drive in with weight from the forearm and rotate a little more strongly from the forearm and the wrist in order to be able to create that, especially with the voicing and phrasings that he's going for, which I just described earlier, with the rotation to get the pinky and the forefinger to get those notes to stand out. And so we watch this. Right, the crescendo, and then coming back down. You can see how high his fingers are coming, right? How high and how fast his fingers are going because they have to strike the key with enough force and articulation to create a crescendo. Too many people play too close to the keys for something like this. Animenz lifting his fingers so high, right? Pretty high in order to get that sort of articulation on the notes and that sort of rotation a little bit from the hand as well, from the wrist in order to get the voicing. You know, so. It sounded like the pedal got a little bit away from him, like that little ringy sort of sound is when the pedal gets away from you. I don't exactly know why that happens. Myself, I just know that it happens when I hold the pedal for too long. So if one of you know, you should let me know down in the comments below. But it's interesting because it's almost like he's using these crescendos to drive the arpeggio coming down so that it can help hide some of the inconsistencies in the arpeggio. It's like you're drawing the listener's attention to something else rather than the technical element so that it smooths out the technical element. And see, here's the relaxation, right? You see how it even looks like his hands are relaxing a little bit, right? Because the motions are smaller, he doesn't have to jump as much. And there it is, right? Again, talking about the voicing from the top. And you hear the ebb and flow in the left hand, right? It increases dynamic and it comes back down a little, right? Even as he's increasing to the second beat and coming back down in order to help support the main melody. So he has all these things going for him in this space where he's relaxing and he's regaining stamina, but he's not loose. So you see how high the fingers are coming again, right? In order to get that. And now this is the point where you just have to start pushing again. And he comes up to mezzo forte. I think what I'll say about a lot of these like repeated like tremolo-ish notes is that they have a tendency to potentially get a little bit repetitive, but they're a textural element in this case. I think it's a little bit loud for my liking, but again, that could be mics, that could be fatigue as well. Again, massive jumps, right? All muscle memory. These jumps are really punishing and brutal, right? You get to see how high he's coming up. Like, he literally, if you don't spring off your fingers here, you won't be able to play the next one, right? You have to convert this energy going this way, this momentum going this way, into momentum going this way. It's hard to phrase these sorts of things because you just don't have time to. You don't have time to think about it, and you're not in the physical condition to do it right either. What you do instead is the next best thing, which is voice the notes that are important by letting the momentum and the weight do the work for you. Now it's soft and quiet again, right? Still in control, right? It's not complete relaxation towards the end of the piece. He's still focused, and he's bringing out the ideas that he wants to. Right? It's coming up. Left pedal, yeah. And he's holding the pedal all the way through, nice. I don't know what else to say. That was really quite something else. So if we compare this to My Dearest or perhaps some other Animenz arrangements that he's played, it's less melodic. But I think this original song is more percussive too, and the way that it's written is more conducive towards playing more percussively and more articulately. Nevertheless, this is now the famous Animenz Unravel. This is now the gold standard of anime piano. Wow, but this was something else, man. This is something else. It's a technical feat in and of itself, but it's also a musical feat in order to be able to play this right. Good job, Animenz. Good job, Animenz. And good luck to anyone out there trying to learn this. All right, real quick. I'm in a slightly different getup, same shirt, but like slightly different environment. And that's because I was going to announce my 500 sub goal. We kind of hit 500 subs. So now I'm going to be announcing what I'm doing, which is this Saturday, March 13th, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will be streaming myself learning Animenz Unravel for 6 hours. So if you want to see me struggle to learn Unravel, then you should definitely stop by because it's gonna be a whole lot of fun. But really, thank you guys so much for 500 subs. I did not expect to get here anywhere nearly as quickly. It still blows my mind. It blows my mind and it's really, really cool. So thank you guys so much. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to support the channel, you can now do so via Patreon, links in the description, and with merch, right? WattKeys merch. And of course, if you want to see me react to more Animenz stuff, you should click right here. Or if you want to hear me play stuff, you should click right here. But until next time, everybody, peace.